Am I good, Lee? Good. Got to check with Lee first. And then I'm going to proceed to make my nest up here. I only have this short period of time when I'm in control right here. This is my space. Anybody that knows and loves an Al-Anon will know that how important that is. Oh, my goodness. Okay. My name is Robyn Vernon. I'm a very grateful Al-Anon member. How many alcoholics are here this morning? Oh, thank you. I feel very honored that you've come this morning. I want to thank Lee and Jessica. I've talked to Lee, been talking to Lee for 2 years. I was originally going to come last year and fill in for Larcene, and then so grateful that she was able to come. And so I committed for this year, and I guess this is exactly when I'm supposed to be here. I have no doubt about it. And then Leslie, precious Leslie, bless her heart. That's what I always tell people. It doesn't take long to figure out that God sends me people just like me to teach me about me. You know, they may think I'm their sponsor and I'm going to teach them things. Oh, no. Takes them a little while to figure out the whole deal, but yes, bless your heart, baby, she's just like me. But she has a really good foundation in recovery, and that's a good thing. That'll serve her well. You guys know how to do a Roundup in Albany, Georgia. Tommy didn't know. But he did a pretty good job on y'all, okay? So we'll give him that. Jennifer is a very hard act to follow, but Jennifer and Tommy both just so eloquently described a recovery from a hopeless, helpless state of mind and body. And how gut-wrenching that is. And I'm grateful. Thank you, guys. You know, you all, the alcoholics, you teach me a lot about you as well. I'm in your book, okay? And I don't have the allergy. I'm in your book. It's not for lack of trying, but let me... okay. All right, when our co-founder, Al-Anon co-founder, Lois Wilson, Bill Wilson's wife, was asked, what do you do in that moment of silence before the meeting? She said that she prayed. And so I'm going to ask if we could have just a brief moment of silence. And she invited the God of her understanding to the meeting. And I would ask each one of you all to invite the God of your understanding to this meeting before I get in any trouble up here. Okay? So just a moment of silence, please. Amen. Thank you. Okay. Well, my home group is the Tuesday evening Serenity group, and we're electronic only right now. It used to be an in-person group, and averaged, it wasn't my home group at that time, but it averaged only 4 or 5 members ever. And now that we've gone totally Zoom, there are 9 to 12 members, sometimes more, every Tuesday evening. So I know that Zoom is not perfect, but it's working very well for Tuesday evening Serenity. So it's a good Al-Anon meeting, good strong Al-Anon there. You all are my family of choice, okay? My family of choice. You all, many of you, maybe a lot of you, know more about me than my sisters, my family of origin, know about me, because none of them are in recovery. They do understand what I do, but not very well. I come from a family of origin that my mom and dad were teetotalers. They did a lot more right than they did wrong. Southern Baptist teetotalers. Oh, well, I'm not going to go into great lengths about that, but so there was no alcoholism in my home. But I didn't know until I made it into Al-Anon that my mother and my father each had alcoholics in their family of origin. So they were affected by the family disease of alcoholism before I was born, which means I was affected by the family disease of alcoholism at birth. And I call it the ISMS, internal spiritual malady. Internal spiritual malady. And you've heard it. Never fit, didn't fit, was not enough. I did a lot of acting out, not quite as much as Tommy, but I can certainly relate to Jennifer. And you know, I'm the oldest of 4 girls. All 4 of us married alcoholics. Well, we're well beyond fluke and coincidence in the pattern there, okay? And I do believe that I'm predisposed to be attracted to alcoholics. I want to tell you about David, the alcoholic that I married. Our first date, juniors in high school, he invited me to a party. We went to the party, and I thought we had a great time. Only about 3 miles from my house. I live in Winston, Salem, North Carolina. This is really Clemens. Anyway, he scared me to death driving me home. I was grateful to get in the driveway safely. And then he asked me out for the next day. Now, perhaps someone that was not affected by the family disease of alcoholism would have said, no, thank you, I've had all I need of this. But alcoholics are not boring, okay? They're generally quite charismatic, in many cases quite handsome, and exciting. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. So I said, sure. And so we arranged to meet the next day, our second date it was going to be, and then he stood me up on our second date. Turns out he was in a blackout when he drove me home. I had missed the whole drinking thing. I don't know how that happened. I didn't have anything to drink, but he sure did. So the phone rang at my house that afternoon, and it was him, and I blessed him out and hung up on him because that was it. Hey, I'm not going to put up with that kind of stuff, okay? And then about 15 minutes, the doorbell rang, and there he stood. And he said, you want to go to Tanglewood Park? I said, let's go. That was a micro boundary right there, micro boundary. David and I fell in sick. We did not fall in love. We fell in sick. And we ran wide open together for a lot of years. We were married at 23 and separated for the first time at 29. Okay? And I did a lot of partying with him, and I could not figure out why he could just not drink. Why couldn't he just not drink like I could just not drink? You all know the answer to that. I was totally ignorant about it. I didn't know anything about the phenomenon of craving, the allergy. I was ignorant. I was ignorant about it. And so I came home and, well, basically what happened, he walked off of a job at R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, which was the place to work in Winston-Salem at that time. And he immediately got a new job, a really good job. And then I went in the bathroom 7:30 in the morning. He was He was drinking beer in the shower before the new job within a week. And that's when I practiced detachment, but certainly not the way we recommended at Al-Anon. I kicked him out of the house and I changed the locks, okay? I detached with anger, and that's not what we recommended to do. He ran through his family and all his friends, and his family put him in treatment. He called me from treatment, and he said, I'm exactly where I need to be. And I thought that was quite odd. And then he said, would you like to come to the family program? And I said, what's that? And he said, well, they call it Al-Anon. And I said, what's it for? And he said, well, that's where the family members and friends go to recover like I go to AA to recover. And I said, recover what? The only thing I had lost was a drunken husband, and I was not interested in recovering that. So I refused to go. I said, no, I don't. There's no reason for me. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. Okay? He was the problem. And if he would just do what I said or not do what I said not do, we'd both be good, you know, because I'm just another actor wanting to direct that show. You guys know how that goes. And so I refused to go. And over a period of time, he came all the way in AA and sat all the way down. I mean, he became a really good member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he was a different human being. We've already heard a lot about that this weekend. He was different. He was very different. And I liked what I saw. So we reconciled. We bought a new house. We moved it, literally, jacked it up, moved it, remodeled it. It was a long process. And we moved in that new home. And, you know, we have something called the 3 C's. I didn't cause it, I can't control it, and I can't cure it. Okay? I had a 4th C, contribute. Okay? Contribute. I didn't cause it, I can't control it, and I can't cure it, but I contributed with my mouth and my attitude. About 5 years into this deal, his sobriety, I remember saying, why are you still going to those meetings? Why are you still hanging out with those people? You haven't had a drink in over 5 years. I was totally ignorant. Okay, David came home to an old idea every day. And I contributed. And I don't mind telling you, I kept a pretty close eye on him too. Because I had a lot of unfinished business. And I was not cleaning my side of the street at all. He came home to an old idea. Relapse came. And that was after 7 years of sobriety for him. And it started about 2 years of the worst insanity I've ever lived with. And I was 95% of it. I was 95% of it. I was a rager. I didn't know that I was powerless over alcohol and that alcoholic. I did everything I could. Had a lot of good ideas and tried all of them, okay? I did a lot of search and find. Okay, he had a duffel bag in the basement. He had a golf bag and a duffel bag, but I knew a lot more about what was in that duffel bag than he did, and it was his. Okay, because I searched it every day at least once. But he kept putting stuff in it, so I'd find it, I'd take to him, gotcha. Don't you think you're getting anything over on me, buddy? And then my next goal was to make him tell the truth. You know how well that worked. In Al-Anon, we have a little thing we say lovingly, how can you tell if an alcoholic's lying? Now I say, how can you tell if an active alcoholic is lying? His lips are moving. Didn't matter what it was. He never knew what it was or how it got there. Like, where'd you find that? What is it? Even if it was a prescription bottle with his name on it, He did some recreational and pharmaceutical exploration too. But anyway, my goal was always control. If I had to use one word to describe my disease, it would be control. Control, specifically of the alcoholic. His doctor gave him a lot of pills, okay, his family doctor. So I thought, I better give him a call. And I did. And I explained, David's got all these pills you're giving him. They're in an unmarked Tylenol bottle. I don't know what he's taking when, and he doesn't either, and he is crazy. And he was. And he said, oh, thank you so much for calling. I won't be giving him any more pills. And then it wouldn't be a week before I'd find more pills in the duffel bag. Called the doctor back. I don't think he took too many of my calls. Now, I was in a whiteout, okay, so I don't remember a lot of this. It took everything I had to try to perpetuate an illusion of control. Pretty soon, he didn't want to talk to me, so I wrote him a letter. My goal was to explain it to him one more time. Doing the same thing over and over and over and over, expecting different results. And I look back on that and I think, gosh, I wonder who he thought was crazy in that equation. I'm sure he's going, golly, if I was married to that woman, I would need some help sleeping. I would be having headaches, muscle spasms, anxiety, because I was dangerous. I'm not kidding. I was a rager, and I acted out. So I started having some physical symptoms, too. I was having some jaw pain. Went to the dentist. He checked my teeth. Your teeth look fine, Robyn. Do you think you grind your teeth? I was like, no, don't grind my teeth. Ear pain. So I went to my family physician. Your ears look fine, Robyn. Do you think you might grind your teeth? No, I don't grind my teeth. Back to the dentist. X-rays. Robyn, your teeth look fine. No fractures. Nothing. Are you sure you don't grind? I do not grind my teeth. I was like a tightly wound clock spring. Okay? And that kind of anger and rage and resentment cannot be compartmentalized. It spilled over on everyone around me. I remember very clearly being ready to pull a young girl across the counter at Taco Bell, and I was going to beat her to death over a burrito. That is distorted thinking. That is delusional, distorted thinking. December 29th of 1992, I ran out of good ideas. I don't know what the difference was. Today, I believe it was a God that I did not know doing for me what I could not do for myself. I heard David down in the basement in the 30-gallon trash can, but he wasn't in the 30-gallon trash can over here by the door. He was in the back corner, and he kept bird seed in that trash can. And I knew he wasn't feeding the birds at 6 a.m. in the dark in December. But I didn't run down and search. I didn't do anything. I made note of it. He passed out on the couch that afternoon. I went down, opened the lid on the bird seed, and there were all these little empty vodka bottles, airplane bottles. Maybe they were easier to hide or something. I don't know. Anyway, I took one upstairs, and I sat down across the room from him, and I very gently said his name. Now, in the past, if I found something in the duffel bag at 3 a.m., I was coming up those steps, and it was not quietly or gently. He'd be asleep in our bed. I didn't care. I didn't know where he was sleeping that night, but I could dang sure tell you where he wasn't sleeping. It was in my bed. Because I was a rager. And I held up that bottle and I said, Dave, I can't live like this anymore. And if you want help, I'll support you. If not, you need to go. And he made the decision to go into outpatient treatment. And I made the decision to go in family program. Now I want to be crystal clear on why I chose to go to family program. First of all, I went to be sure that he went. Second, I went to make sure that he heard what he needed to hear. And I told him what that was all the way home every night. Yeah, some of us are sicker than others, and I am some of that some, okay? They put us all together, the patients and the family members, in this room for the first 5 nights from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Oh, my God, it was a squirrely bunch. And when we were going home, I would tell him what it was he should have heard that night, and then I would talk about him and them. Did you hear what she said? Did you hear what he thought? Did you hear what they did? Look how sick these people are. I was shocked. Third night there, they'd given us these notebooks. We're in this circle, and the counselor was sitting right in front of me. And he said, turn to page 47 in your notebook. Well, I very promptly and perfectly turned to page 47 in my notebook. And I looked over, and David appeared to be struggling. So I reached over and helped him get his page to 47. Yeah, I know. That's okay. Y'all make all the noise you need to, because I am in complete awareness. I looked up, and that counselor was looking at me. And my mind opened just a crack, and I thought, I don't think I'm okay. That look he had on his face was the same look I knew I had on mine all the way home every night. Coincidence that they put me in a van and took me to my first Al-Anon meeting that night? I think not. And for me, I came home. I did not get here too early, and I'm so grateful for that. It was 9 years after David invited me to my first Al-Anon meeting, and it took everything it took for me to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Everything it took. So I came all the way in, and I sat all the way down. And I started asking questions. They said, the more meetings you go to, the quicker you're going to feel better. I made more than 90 meetings in 90 days. I didn't know that they asked that of you all, or they used to. I went to about 9 meetings a week. Now, at least one of them was an open AA meeting, a speaker meeting. But I was immediately willing to go to any lengths. They said, need to work these steps. Recovery is in the steps. I didn't even know what recovery meant. What's recovery? It's in the 12 steps. How do you work these steps? Get a sponsor. What's a sponsor? And they said, a sponsor is someone you hear with your heart. Well, my heart was absolutely closed. I was long past feeling anything, long past crying. It only held rage, anger, rage, and resentment at that time. I said, well, how do you tell what they are? Who's a sponsor? Who are they? And I had picked out a pretty crusty dual member. Okay, I thought she's got what I need right there, because I was pretty crusty myself, and God sent a fairy princess. She was my exact opposite, okay? But she was a black belt Al-Anon, and I will never forget the first thing that she suggested. They don't tell you what to do, but they make some strong suggestions. And she said, it would probably be a good idea if you didn't say anything to David that was judging, accusing, or blaming. Jab. Judging, accusing, blaming. Got it. Went home, held everything that was going to come out of my mouth up to that. Is it judging? Is it accusing? Is it blaming? All communication on my part ceased. And I didn't know until right then that everything I had said to this fine man for years had been judging him for something, accusing him or something, or blaming him of something. Everything that was wrong in Robyn's world was David's fault. You know, Tommy talked about being a victim. Well, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. It was always somebody else's fault. So I went back to her and I said, we've got a communication problem at the house now. What can I say? Let's approach it from that direction. And she said, you can say it if it's loving, true, and necessary. But it has to be all three. Well, I could pull off true and necessary. There was no loving. No loving. I had lost all respect for him because I was still absolutely, totally ignorant about the disease that he suffered from. Totally ignorant. And that began my journey. She made me call her every day. I didn't understand that. I don't know this woman. What are we going to say? She said, just tell me that you're okay. So I picked up that phone. I called her every day. Most of the time I saw her at a meeting that night. And I understand today that when the relapse comes, which it more than likely will, it's muscle memory. It's muscle memory. You know, I had a problem with the whole God thing, being Southern Baptist, okay? I did not find a God of my understanding there, and that's not on them, that's on me. And she said, Robyn, your God can be anything you want it to be. Anything you want it to be. It could be good, orderly direction. I didn't even get that was G-O-D, okay? And that's what the God of my understanding was for a very long time. Good, orderly direction. And honestly, it can still be that today. So I started following good, orderly direction. She said, well, let's start the steps. I cruised through 1 through 4. Paperwork on 1 through 4. I mean, how hard is this? I did my paperwork, and we'd talk about it and go on and go on and go on. And so we got to 5, and that's the one I was going to skip. I was never going to tell this fairy princess everything about me, okay? Because I was pretty sure she hadn't been to a lot of places I'd been to and definitely hadn't done a lot of things I'd done. And so when I got to 4, it was time for 5. She'd say, well, how are you coming on that 4 step? I said, good, making good progress. And I was stuck, okay? And she said, well, hey, coming on that 4 step. She'd about every week, more than likely. And I made the mistake of telling her the truth. I said, I'm stuck. And she said, well, I think you probably need to process. Hadn't heard that word. I said, yeah, I think I do. I think I probably need to process. So she said, come to the house on Saturday. We'll have lunch, and then we'll process. And so I went over to her house. We were sitting there having lunch. The phone rang, and it was another Al-Anon. I heard her say, now I'm going to be taking the 5th step this afternoon, so I'm going to have the ringer turned off on the phone. And I thought, well, I wonder who's coming over to do a 5th step when I get finished processing. Hey, this fairy princess was pretty cunning. Okay? She tricked me. And I didn't understand, probably for several years. but I get it today. She already knew a lot more about me than I knew about me. You know, that's how God works this deal out. That's why He sends people to me just like me. And I bless their heart. I bless their heart. But it's the miracle of being in this tribe. And it is. You all are my family of choice, and you all are my tribe, Al-Anon or AA. It was 4 months in that David relapsed. And I saw immediately that the disease had progressed during the time that he had not been drinking. He was immediately worse than he was. And I had a slip too, and I was having a hard time making it to meetings. First of all, I was mad. I was really mad. Look at everything I'm doing. I'm going to at least one Al-Anon meeting every night, sometimes two. I have a sponsor. I'm using a sponsor. I call her every freaking night, and I'm working these steps. Al-Anon salute. Okay? And I thought martyrdom was one of those that I didn't have. Oh, yeah. Had plenty of it. Plenty of it. That's how selfish and self-centered I was. You all don't corner the market on that. It was all about me. It was all about me. Look at what He's doing to me. So she said, I think you probably need to come over to my house for this week. Because I really was having trouble getting to meetings. And I didn't like that idea. I'd only known her about 4 months. But I trusted in her good, orderly direction. And so I did that. So on the way out of my house leaving to stay at her house for a week, I had done such a really good job on my first step work that I'd been giving David the number of an AA sponsor I had picked out for him. Yep, some of us. I'm some of the some. It just happened to be my sponsor's husband. And you know what the ulterior motive was there. There'd be a little information exchange on the side that we wouldn't tell anybody. And she would have never done that. And he wouldn't have either. But anyway, I didn't know any better because I had not made the transfer. Even though I'd worked the first 5 steps, I had not made that transfer at all on one single step. I get that this is a heart program today. The problem lies right here between these 2 ears. That's not where I need to be keeping the solution. I got to be in my heart. She used to call me behind my back the Ice Princess. She was afraid, and she told me. She said, I was afraid you were going to shatter rather than thaw. And I'm telling you, I've seen that happen. A lot more people come and go than come and stay. And it breaks my heart every time. So I had written Ray's number on this sticky note. I was standing beside my car. David was standing right in front of me. I mean, I had the car door open, ready to get in the car and leave. I said, I'm going to give him this number one more time, and he will make that call. He is at that bottom that I have heard them talk about. See, I'd learned a lot, or thought I had. Lack of humility. And so I handed him that yellow sticky note. I turned around, took one step, got in my car. And I raged. I was raging on the way to her house. And about halfway there, I looked down. That sticky note was on the bottom of my shoe. I don't know how that happened. It had to be a God thing. It had to be a God thing. I don't know, did he not take it from me? Did he drop it? Or did God take it from him and put it on the bottom of my shoe? It doesn't matter. that I peeled that thing off. Very clearly it was a God thing. I peeled that sticky note off the bottom of my shoe, and it was the first thing to go in my God box. And I knew in my heart when I did that on the way over to my sponsor's house what she'd been telling me for months. I had not heard it, but it was there when I made that transfer. Robyn, you're not qualified to help this man. The only person qualified to help him is another alcoholic. Not you. You don't know what he needs. And I did. And that's when I began to put down that magnifying glass that I'd been holding to watch him all those years, and began picking up a mirror and getting the focus where it needed to be, on me. I want to talk for a minute about the transfer on the third step. I did come home at the end of that week, and he was not in a blackout. He told me much later that he was in a 5-day blackout while I was gone, and he missed work for the very first time. He never missed work. What happened at our house was he got drunk and I missed work. Little Miss Perfect, that's how unmanageable my life was, okay? So I came home, but remember, I'm holding a mirror. I'm not holding that magnifying glass, or I'm beginning to more often hold a mirror. I better qualify that. I'm not sure exactly when it was. I remember I came home from work. I pulled the car in the garage, and I was halfway up the basement steps, and I don't know what we were talking about, but I looked down at David, and my disease said, I don't know about y'all, but my disease talks to me. And it's very cunning, very cunning. My disease said, he's been drinking, and it's in the bird seed. That's my last big find, because I'll tell you one thing. My black belt Al-Anon sponsor had made it very clear. No more search and find. Okay, you're in a slip when you're searching anything in that basement. You're acting out your disease, and that's inappropriate. You pick up that phone and you call me before you act out your disease. So I ran right upstairs and did that. I could tell, I've partied with him for years. Yes. Oh, my God, yes, he's been drinking. I better get upstairs. Took the walk-in phone. We didn't have cell phones. Closed both. Went in the walk-in closet, closed both doors, and said, oh, my God, I've just come home from work, and he's been drinking. I can tell by looking at him. And she said, in that fairy princess voice, Robyn, your higher power is going to let you know what you need to know when it's time for you to know it, and see what you need to see when it's time for you to see it, and hear what you need to hear when it's time for you to hear it. See you at the meeting. Click. And I knew better than to call her back and explain it one more time when she's in that frame of mind. That black belt zone, I talked to her that night at a meeting. This was a Thursday. I saw her Friday at 2 meetings. I don't know how many times she said it. Enough that it is imprinted on my brain. Robyn, your higher power is going to let you know what you need to know when it's time for you to know it. See what you need to see when it's time for you to see it, and hear what you need to hear when it's time for you to hear it. David worked as a starter at a golf course on Saturdays. He left the house at dark o'clock, and he called and woke me up that Saturday morning, which didn't make me happy at all. He said, will you do me a favor? What? Will you feed the birds for me? And he proceeded to send me down to that trash can that I've been wanting to search for 2 days. Now, fifth step, I dug much deeper than I needed to feed the birds. Still some of the some. Again, it was, and I knew, oh my gosh, that's God doing for me what I can't do for myself. If I had gone down and, I could have gone down and searched, but then you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to fifth step, this black belt Al-Anon sponsor. God only knows what homework I would have had. A lot. There's magic in the pen and paper, okay? 3 answers to prayer, yes, no, wait a while. I do better with a flat-out no than I do wait. I don't practice delayed gratification well. And that's when I made that transfer on that third step. God's plan and God's timing are perfect. And He will give me what I need if I will allow Him to. And not bulldoze ahead. Mach 10, I have 2 speeds. Mach 10, hair on fire, stop. And there's still, honestly, a lot of that going on. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. But anyway, David came home on November 22nd of 1993, drunk. I had made dinner. I don't know how much he drank in that 11 months. I was holding a magnifying glass. But I can tell you this, we had not sat down together for a meal in a long time. Okay? I had dinner on the table waiting on him. He walked in, he was clearly drunk. We sat down and we had that meal together. I have no idea what we talked about. But I can tell you what we didn't talk about. The fact that he'd been drinking. I had learned from you all that it was okay to state my truth. Okay, not to make him do something or keep him from doing something, but just because that's what I needed to do. Drop it and walk away from it. And my sponsor had taught me to pray, God, let me know when to speak up and when to shut up. And if it's time to speak up, please let it be your words. I was standing at the sink doing the dishes. He's sitting at the table with this deer in the headlights look because I'm doing something different. And I turned around and I said to him, I need to let you know that I'm uncomfortable with the way you are. And that was it. Now, he started his part of our old tapes. You know, we had old tapes that we could have just played, old VHS, whatever. We're moving around the house, doing it over and over and over, expecting different results. And he said, well, I've not been drinking. And I said, stop. I call this my Supremes move. Stop. Can't discuss it with you. I just needed to let you know how I felt. Finished the dishes, went in, sat down on the sofa. Had a meeting that night, and I'm telling you, the squirrel was in the cage, had that knot in my chest. I mean, there was a lot going on below the surface. In about 20 minutes, he came and he sat down beside me on the couch, and he looked me in the eyes, and he said, I drank today. I've hurt you. I'm sorry. The minute I stopped trying to make him tell the truth, he comes in, sits down, and tells the truth. What happened for me was that I looked in his eyes, and for the first time in all the years we'd been together, God allowed me to see how much his drinking hurt him. It blew me away. And all my selfishness and self-centeredness, it had always been about me. I had so easily assumed that victim role. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know anything about the effects of the disease of alcoholism on the alcoholic. And I looked at him and I said, Dave, I love you and I want you to be okay, but I am not qualified to help you. You know where your help is. And I went to my meeting. I didn't know till 2 years later what happened for him. I went to that open AA speaker meeting I've been going to. Guess who the speaker was? And I'll never forget what he said. He gave his sobriety date, November 22nd of 1993. When I came home drunk and my wife didn't go crazy like she always had, I didn't have anything else to look at but me. And I did not like what I saw. When I think about my part in all that, I see myself standing, hands on the hip, just very intimidating. and I'm doing the Al-Anon handshake. And David's higher power is behind me, tapping me on the shoulder. And he's saying, excuse me. His higher power is tapping me on the shoulder and he's saying, excuse me, that young man needs my help. And if you'll step aside, I will help him. And in all of my godlike attitude, my knowing best, I'm like, oh, no, God, you go help somebody that doesn't have somebody like me to help them. The biggest difference between me and God, he never thinks he's me. He does not get confused about that. I don't get confused about it like I used to, but I still know best, unfortunately. David and I had several more years together, and then it was just apparent that we just didn't need to be married anymore. I wonder sometimes if we didn't fall in sick and God engineered the whole thing to get me to Al-Anon. I know I'm not that important, but I guarantee I wouldn't have gotten it here any other way. And we divorced, separated and divorced, in recovery, which I will always be grateful for. We talked to one another like we wanted to be talked to. We treated one another like we wanted to be treated. It was still very, very hard. He is my soulmate, the love of my life. In 2009, David called me from another treatment center. And that's when I began to learn about pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization and how truly cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient the disease of alcoholism is. The first time he relapsed, when I asked my sponsor, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? She said, you treat him like an honored guest in your home. I'm not sure I pulled it off that first time, but I did this time. We would get together and go out for dinner and shoot pool and laugh And then I wouldn't see him for a few weeks, and I would know. I would love him from a distance, because that's all I could do, because I know I'm not qualified to help him. My disease said it'd be okay for you to drive by his house. It'd be okay for you to call and check on him. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. I would not be part of a solution had I shown up there. Every time I talked to him, I said, David, you're a good man. And you deserve the very best that God has to offer. I love you. I don't know how many times I told him that in 2 years' time. But I knew that sometimes there are no do-overs. I took no more dignity from him. That's my greatest regret, is the dignity that I took from a fine man. He came by my house in September of 2011, and he had been ravaged by the disease. And he said, I don't think I'll survive another relapse. And I said, David, you're a good man. You deserve the very best that God has to offer. I don't want you to die. I love you. And it was a month later that a dual member in my home group called to let me know that David had died from the effects of terminal alcoholism. He made almost 16 years. I like to think he bought somebody's sobriety. I know he suffers no more. It's an awful thing to watch. You all have seen it. If you haven't, you will. The miracle in that for me is that I was part of the solution those last 2 years. I didn't get in God's way. I had a clean slate with him. And my last 3 words were, I love you, always. And I will always be grateful for that. That's the miracle for me. All right, I'm going to have to speed this up. Okay, today, holy cow, today. Well, I got a lot of lessons, I had a double mastectomy in August 3rd of last year. You know, I know Larcene came last year, and I was supposed to fill in for her, and they changed her surgery. She was able to take her tatas on a farewell tour. Well, the horse has already left the barn for me. But, you know, everything except for having breast cancer has gone right. Every test, no gene mutations. I would have never bet my money on that, you know. My mother died from exactly the same type of cancer. Yeah. But no chemo, no radiation, 1 pill once a day for 5 years. So, God, I got a lot to be grateful for. Yes. Thank you. God is good. God is good, and I know He has me in the palm of His hand. Jennifer mentioned the D word last night. Depression. I'm a hero, and I got a program. You don't get depression when you got a program. It just doesn't happen. Lack of humility, let me point that out. I go to a women's AA meeting with Al-Anon participation. They won't let me chair a meeting, but I try every week almost. But Anyway, I was having trouble. And I didn't know. I couldn't name it, claim it, tame it. I didn't know. And my friend, Heidi Joe, told me about a longtime sober AA member in California that had a triple bypass. And they told her, after a major surgery, you're going to be depressed. You're going to be depressed. And so what she did was every morning she got up and she looked in the mirror and said, F you, depression. And that was it. It took me about 3 more days after Heidi shared that with me to be willing. But I was hurting, and it's amazing. And Tommy mentioned it. I want to say, I heard a speaker say, this is not original, but she said, between me and my truth is my disease. And if you hold your hand up like that, you can see around the peripheral, but you can't see what's right at the end of your nose. But between my sponsor and my truth, there's nothing but air. And so the message came to me in North Carolina from an AA in California via an AA in Texas. And 3 days later, I was hurting bad. And I said, F you, depression. You don't know my God. My God has me in the palm of his hand. And my entire being lies perfectly still in that perfect cocoon. You get no more of my time, no more of my peace of mind and serenity, no more of my energy. No more. And I've only had to do that like 2 or 3 more times. It's like name it, claim it, tame it. I know you know how this works. It was amazing. Just amazing. I don't think I got any more time. No, I don't. Definitely. Well, I can't tell the difference between a tragedy and a miracle. It's a tragedy that I married an alcoholic. I had to come to some meetings, for God's sakes. But that's the miracle. My life does not work without you all. My life doesn't work without Al-Anon, without these 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 concepts. It just doesn't. You know, and people ask, why you still come? I come because I treasure what I have. And I know I have to give it away to keep it. The way I look at it today, my very worst day today is 300% better than my best day used to be before Al-Anon. I don't want to live like that again. I thank you for my program. Glad to be here. Whew.